one thing that did work in the Gasset meetings, which funneled down, was the map that showed all of the red list bridges. You open up a piece of paper and it shows a map and it says all these red and green, and it's very simply understood. And people don't mind paying for that. But honestly, you talk to people about paying for bike trails and all this other stuff when their bridge is falling down, it makes no sense to them. And once you put that into their brain that you're trying to put through a bike trail instead of fixing the bridge, you lost the whole thing. Because now they're lumping that whole thing into one item and they don't trust it. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Any further comment, discussion, additions, omissions? Okay, we're moving on. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to refer you back to the agenda, and you'll see on section 3.2 that we've deferred asking for approval on the SMPO letter on Gasset. And at this point, I'm not too sure the letter should be going out in its current form, but I would entertain a motion to instruct the executive director to do something on this one.
Mr. Chair, could I ask you a question?
Yes.
Were we going to delay action on endorsing the letter or taking action on the letter until after the complete discussion of agenda item 4, or
no, just I believe the first bullet on agenda 4. I believe the second two bullets are other items that don't. Am I correct? Don't impact sections 3.2 and 3.3 under action items. So we're essentially dealing with 3.2 and 3.3. The discussion has, I believe, is complete on that, but I believe at this point a motion would be in order to instruct the director to anyone? Ken?
Again, just as a clarification, Tom had mentioned we do not have a draft letter, I don't think, unless I missed it, in front of us that would be going to senators and our congressional.
I haven't seen the right.
3.2.
So really, we're just dealing with 3.2 at this point.
Yes.
Right, at this point. We'll hit 3.3 in a second.
Okay, got it.
Okay, on 3.2 again.
So I guess, okay, so for purpose of discussion, I will make a motion that the MPO, or the Strafford Metropolitan Planning Organization, endorse the letter, the draft letter that we have dated October 21st, addressed to Mr. Watson at DOT.
Or the chair of the Gasset.
The chair?
Yes.
Oh, okay, as the chair of the Gasset. That we endorse this letter, that we also send copies to other, that the CC indicate that we're sending copies to the other stakeholders, our state representatives and our state senators, so that they're in the loop in all of this. And we may want to, I think, also send copies to other stakeholders, some of which Ed mentioned, and our county commissioners, for example, and other folks, because I think this information is useful. It certainly doesn't take care entirely of the communication issue. It doesn't, by far, take care of the entire communication that Ed referenced, but it does, from a procedural standpoint, we need to get this information to the people who will be actually taking the votes. And so that's the reason for my motion with the additional CCs. I also understand the interest in Steve in terms of adding some additional language, but I just don't know how we can endorse that as a group, given the fact that the meetings are going to be starting shortly and we won't have a chance to meet again. But I am sensitive to the issue of not getting distracted by a very small piece to the exclusion of dealing with the bigger pieces.
Okay, motion's on the floor. I won't ask you to repeat it. Is there a second to the motion?
I would second again.
Bob? Okay. Discussion on the motion. Mark?
Would it make sense to have some kind of policy subcommittee to review the letter before it is sent out? I don't think that idea.
I think at least my motion was to endorse this letter as it is.
As it is.
But I think you've raised the interesting point that we may want to implement at a future point, so that there are more people who are involved in this discussion, and also back to Ed's point of looking at ways in which we might be able to generate additional input from folks who might not otherwise understand some of these connections and things of that sort. But not this time around. I think
normally when we have a draft letter, we take it in and then we change the language to be reflective of the discussion so that it incorporates that into the letter. So Steve mentioned the thing about, mentioned the scale of investment, to have a sentence or two on that. And Rad mentioned the FTA 5310, and Ed's talked about how we communicated, and Tom has his concerns about supporting the decisions of DOT and the request for money. So we'll go back through and we'll listen to the conversation, and the letter will reflect the sense of the discussion and be respectful of that. That's our process. So.
Just to raise a procedural question. I mean, Cynthia, this letter, the draft of this letter is coming over your signature?
Yes.
Okay. So do we need, I mean, if this is a document that is basically signed by us, by the MPO, then I think we need to vote on whatever that final language is. If my motion needs to be amended to endorse this letter, or to authorize you to submit this letter with those modifications that incorporate that, to me that's substantively different. Yeah. So I guess my question is, what should my motion be? Because I'm a little uncomfortable about having a motion that says this is the letter without knowing exactly what it says, but I also like the idea of being able to convey the information that came out this morning. So in that sense, I guess I would amend my motion maybe to authorize Cynthia to send a letter on behalf of the MPO that substantively is the same as here, but reflects those 3 or 4 issues that you...
You want to see a copy of that letter before it goes out?
Yeah, we can send that out, and then we'll just wait till, if we, the answer is if you don't respond, it's okay. You can live with it. If you respond, we'll address any concerns or issues that you have. I mean, that's the way this board has normally operated.
So I'm if it's okay with my second, I'm modifying my motion.
If it is clear that any modified letter is going to be looked at,
yes,
then I can agree to the amendment.
Yep.
To the modification you suggested. I personally was happy with it.
Yeah.
When the letter goes out, we have how many days to respond back? Because you need to set a date.
Right.
This needs to go out pretty quickly.
So 3 days?
3 days. Yep.
Whatever.
Yep.
Okay. 3-day response incorporated into the amended motion.
Yep. Yep.
How about a 3-day a comment in the letter indicated that a lack of response will be indicative of approval?
Yep.
Okay, so we're not hanging up on people who on vacation.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, Ed first, and
If there's any changes made, how are we supposed to all see them?
then it would have to be, there would have to
Then
be
we send it back out.
an iteration type
Yeah.
thing. Ken?
Oh, no, I was just
Okay.
bringing had his hand up and wanted to make sure we saw
Anyone
that.
else with comments on the motion? The motion made, was there a second? I missed that.
Yes.
Okay, that's right.
Bob.
Okay, Bob seconded. Okay, any further discussion? So there's no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion as on the amendment?
But
We have to go through this twice. On the amendment.
no, I changed my motion, my
Oh,
second
okay,
agreed to
okay.
it, so that's
Okay,
the new.
one vote, okay. Those in favor of the motion as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, and on to 3.3. Right, we don't have that letter in front of
No,
us.
there isn't
Do
a
you want to
letter at
address
this
that?
time. Yeah, so we're down at 4.1, status of existing MPOs with less than 200,000 population. So the next two issues,
Just, there was a question about process, and so I just, for my purposes, it'd be helpful to know, are we looking at drafting a letter to the senders?
we haven't drafted a letter because we wanted to get a consensus first.
Right. So it's not just we're not doing this, this will be on the agenda for our next meeting, is that?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure it wasn't lost in the shuffle.
Right,
No.
I was, right, I took
Thank you.
responsibility for that. Okay, so 3.3 has been deferred to the November's meeting.
If we have a November meeting. Yeah.
Okay, so the next meeting,
Yeah.
MPO meeting. Okay, moving right along to the status of the existing MPOs with less than 2,000 population centers.
Okay, so if you look right, what's your name, John? Yes. Right behind you, there's a map, and it shows southeast New Hampshire, 2000 census urban areas and New England city and town areas. So there's a process that has evolved between several federal agencies that delineate urbanized areas. And it's the primary role and function of the Census Bureau to set the urbanized areas. So a year ago in November, we hosted a meeting, and there was about 50 people that came, and we had somebody, one of the staff members from the Census Bureau here, and he explained the new rules that the Census Bureau was looking at to form and delineate urbanized areas. So we put our comments in, and other people did, and in New England, we're different than the rest of the country. We have New England city and town areas. So it's a distinct unit that exists only for the 6 New England states. And the reason why is our county functions aren't the same as the rest of the country. So a lot of the functions that happen at a county level happen at the city and town level within New England. Census Bureau has recognized that and delineates it as a New England city and town area. Why am I saying this? Because the Census Bureau uses rules that look as counties as having a land use function, and when these urbanized areas are structured, they're not structured based on how New England works and operates historically and in the present. So this has to do with the fact that we have a lot of small towns and cities. We have a small population base. If you look at all of New England, it's smaller than DC, smaller than Dallas, smaller than San Francisco, New York. You know, our 1 million in 1.3 million in New Hampshire is, you know, part of one, you know, the east side of DC or the, you know, the west side of Los Angeles. No, it wouldn't be Los Angeles, that would be the ocean. The north side of Los Angeles. So when you look at us compared to the rest of the country, we're very, very different, and we function differently. So what is happening is we have problems rising up out of the Census Bureau, not because the Census Bureau is doing anything wrong, it's because the other federal agencies need to use the findings of the Census Bureau in order to formulate how they disperse funding. So I'm sure Rad can tell us a lot about the 5307. The part that I want to look at is the existing metropolitan planning organizations. So right now, when an urbanized area, and those are the green areas, the purple areas, so if you could show where ours is.
This is us up here.
So that's us, and we're at about 60, 70,000, our urbanized area. And we're waiting, next year in 2012, we're waiting to see what's going to happen with our urbanized area. I'm going to leave that issue for Rad because that's a different issue than what we have. There was a leaked document that was a draft of the reauthorization for the Surface and Air Transportation Bill that said that existing MPOs under 200,000 in population would be eliminated, and the functions would go to the state for the state to deal with all of those functions that are done by the MPO. The MPO, in this leaked draft, the MPO could request to the governor to have the MPO designation reinstated, and then it would go, there'd be findings and letters and documentation, and then it would go to the Secretary of the Department of Transportation, and they would review it and make a decision on whether this MPO has set a case forward that would be acceptable for them